I want to talk today, or obviously talking today, about the HST and its impact on families and small businesses. As all of you know, the HST came into force on July 1st, 2010. Since then, the HST already has taken $1 billion out of the pockets of BC families, and it will take $1 billion, more than $1 billion out of their pockets in the next year, that is directly transferred over to big business. This is a big business tax cut paid for by families and small businesses. The choice is clear. It's a 0% tax if the NDP is successful in the referendum in fighting for the PST to return in British Columbia, and a 7% tax if the BC Liberal Party is successful. That's the difference, that's the choice on this set of issues. And now the government is paying for an ad campaign to convince you that the HST, which is bad for you, is in fact good for you. And we learned in Kamloops today that they're laying off sheriffs in our courthouses, that that have dramatically affected the justice system. And they're spending $5 million on stickmen ads, liberal partisan ads paid for by taxpayers. I think that's a disgrace. But beyond that, one thing that Christy Clark did say 2 months ago was that if you do what Premier Clark's proposing to do, it will mean $1.6 billion in cuts to emergency rooms, $1.6 billion in cuts to heart surgeries, $1.6 billion in cuts to special needs teachers, and so on. Those are her direct words. Here in Kamloops, where we have the longest wait times for health care of any community in British Columbia, some of the longest wait times of any community in Canada, where lack of investment in the hospital has cost people again and again, when communities around Kamloops, like communities such as Logan Lake in Harry's community, have had healthcare facilities closed, they know in this community the price they paid for Liberal neglect of healthcare. And when they have a Liberal Premier acknowledge that her plan after an election would be to cut healthcare, then I think that's a concern to everybody in Kamloops, especially, because they know here in Kamloops better than anywhere in British Columbia the consequences of BC Liberal health policy. I don't think people here are going to be fooled. They know that the HST is bad for them, bad for families, bad for small business, bad for the economy. And that we need a government that finally puts this HST debacle behind it and governs in the interests of families and small businesses and communities in BC.
The economy was already in the doldrums, and people's amount of discretionary money to spend was lower. And then when the HST came in, that was one item that is the first thing to be cut from people's budget. It's something that they don't have to do. So it's when the GST was first added on to restaurant meals, it meant a 10% decrease in restaurant meals sales throughout the province. And we had barely recovered from that when we got hit with this double whammy of the economy and the HST. And it, I would say, has decreased our income by about 20%. Not only
I want to point out is that First Nations are being hit really hard. So you've got single mothers and seniors, people on welfare, as well as First Nations who are really getting hurt badly, and families getting hurt as a result of this punitive HST. What they're doing is actually taking money out of the pockets of families, out of the pockets of middle-class earners, and giving it to their corporate friends who finance their elections.
If the no side prevails next month, the HST is still alive in July, and you win the next election, what's the fate of this tax?
I'm going to respect the will of the people, right? And so it will be up to the people. It's their referendum on the HST. I can't believe that Prime Minister Harper would take the view that BC voters should be punished, and BC taxpayers should be punished for expressing their democratic view. That may be his view, in which case we'll have to deal with that as a government. But I think when the people of British Columbia express their view, that should be respected, not just in Victoria, but in Ottawa. So what we have here is a government that is out of gas, out of ideas, not presenting much in the way of new ideas, and they misled us fundamentally. And, you know, you need change in a democracy sometimes, you know, and change is coming. And the only way to bring change in British Columbia, after 10 years of this stuff, is to elect an NDP government.